Hello, everybody, and welcome to the DMD podcast. That's Dark Match Drive. This is episode number 3, I believe. Um, Joining me here are my two contestants that I pit against each other quite often because they're much more knowledgeable than me at wrestling. But we all have fun here. I'm going to normally I ask what did you watch recently, but I'm going to very specifically say out of the 8 pay-per-views that happened this weekend. What was your most enjoyable match or segment from this whole weekend? Oh, no more 1988 AWA, whatever. Like something that happened this weekend, please. I'll go with Johnny first. Be fair, and Jeremy, what was your favorite thing from this weekend? And you can tell us how you're doing and stuff. You love your mom, apparently.
Yeah. Probably the Pillars 4-way. And if you were to have asked me a week ago if I was even looking forward to it, I would have said, meh, it'll be okay. But, I mean, they went out there and just absolutely tore it up nonstop for 27 minutes, I think it was. And there was never a dull moment in the entire match. And I just thought everybody brought their A game and everyone came into that match looking good and came out looking even better. I mean, I would buy any of those 4 as a main eventer right now because of that match. And, everyone just doing their spots to, paying homage to their mentor and stuff. And then the finish was brilliant because everyone realized, hey, it's a 4-way. We can get away with using weapons. And MJF was like, okay, but I'll have somebody use my weapon for me, and then I'll just steal the pin. And so it just played perfectly into everyone's role. And MJF is still champ. And if you haven't seen the 4-way, go watch it, like right now.
MJF called his shot there, told us what he was going to do, and he ended up doing it. I mean, he kind of figured out a way to do it again, but just like he didn't actually choke out CM Punk, he was able to use his little gimmick there. But same thing, like he was able to be like, oh, I did this. Well, you kind of did, asterisk beside it. So really cool, great stuff. I'm actually surprised at that answer because not getting great reviews online. Well, some haters, but whatever. Actually, I think my favorite was still the Anarchy in the arena match. Same thing. Like a lot of people said, it pretty much that the AEW pay-per-view altogether was overbooked, which me, I'm never really like. Someone can tell me something's overbooked, and it's like, okay, yeah, but it was fun and I enjoyed it. So whatever. It can happen and still be great. I enjoyed that probably the most this weekend. I did really like the WWE pay-per-view, but I did still give the edge to the AEW. And also a big Battleground pay-per-view that's getting rave reviews as well. So and Under Siege, what I didn't watch at all. So only you guys will be able to help out with that one. Why don't we start with that? Could you guys maybe, I don't know if you want to give a little bit of a talk or just run down what happened at Under Siege, because I don't know at all. Maybe I guess, Johnny didn't really go about what the main event was and kind of what happened. Can you maybe elaborate more on that? Was it the PCO match?
Yeah, it was PCO and Moose. Moose. Why did I say Moose?
What the hell are you going on about?
Apparently, I'm stuck in a time warp. I watched last year's Under Siege, I guess. Now, it was PCO and Steve Macklin in the main event, and it was just. I'm sort of reticent to say it, but it was a better unsanctioned style match than the actual unsanctioned match on Sunday night. By far and away, the things they did. I mean, PCO is just unhuman. I question that. Like, I legitimately believe he is Frankenstein's monster at this point, just based on the things he puts his body through at the age in which he. I mean, I'm in my mid-30s and I'm sitting here waking up every morning like, ow, oh god, that hurts. This hurts. This, oh, my back, my shoulder, my knee, my elbow. I'm not a professional wrestler. I'm just a human being, and PCO's out here diving from the top rope onto the floor, hitting nothing, hitting aprons like it's, like it's a bouncy house, bouncing his head off of cinder blocks that aren't gimmicked, getting his mouth literally stapled shut, like the things he's putting his body through at the age in which he is, just, I question his humanity as on a level of, I do not think he's human, legitimately, like, if we find aliens on Earth, PCO is one of them. I'm confident of that. It's just, Macklin did everything, and it helped Macklin, because to me, Macklin, I haven't really been enthralled in his story. Like, to me, he's the sort of, he's one of those guys that suffers from the WWE curse. He was booked so horribly there. I mean, he was, wasn't he one of the Fortunate Sons?
Forgotten Son.
Sure, that, whatever.
The other one.
Like, it just was such a bad group and gimmick that, is not well remembered, more because of the other people in it than he himself. But, you get lumped into a group like that, and it's hard to break out of that. I mean, we saw that with a lot of the Spirit Squad guys. Only Dolph was able to break out of that mold. Once you get to a gimmick on national television, you're kind of stuck with that gimmick until you can throw the chains off yourself. And to me, he hadn't done that. He hadn't done that until this match, because I'm sure that if he'd have gotten to the payoff with Josh Alexander, I'd probably still be saying the same thing, because Josh is a guy, I was in attendance for his very first match of his career, so was Jer, and seeing how far this guy has come from that rookie green as grass to this polished professional that he is today, it's been an immaculate ride. And I'm sure that I still would have felt the same way, because Josh would have brought the best out of him. But this was a different sort of coming out, because it allowed him to unleash the dark side of Steve Macklin in such a way that it's like, damn, like he did everything, and bled like a stuck pig too. Like that's, like
that's always good.
It
thing to
doesn't
have.
hurt. Like, we make a big deal. Like, when you use it properly, that's the important thing. When you use it, when you're John Moxley bleeding in a random Dynamite match, when you're John Moxley bleeding in a random Dynamite match, unnecessary. But that's more because his skin is paper thin at this point than, storyline necessity. But, to go out there and bleed like that to that level, it's very NWA, classic NWA. I don't mean the current crock of crap. I mean classic,
good.
80s.
It makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, in order to go through, like, to be a good champion, you have to show a lot of, I've been through this, I've done this, I had to do this. Like, right now, MJF is knocking off those things, being like, I did an Iron Man match with him. I did a No Holds Barred with Moxley. I did this. I did that. I've taken, like, all those things you guys said I couldn't do. And, yeah, matches like, going through PCO, the Inhuman guy. Doesn't PCO own, like, a late 80s, early 90s win over Hogan? Like,
I don't think he had a win. He had a match with Hogan. I think it was it?
I feel like he has like a house show win over Hogan, and that was
that was Jacques.
Makes him a god.
That was Jacques.
Who? Is that Jacques? Okay. That
PCO and Hogan. I don't know if they ever actually had a Montreal match.
I don't think so. No,
because
Hogan was just
okay.
Hogan being nice for once in his life.
I mean, it's one of the very few exceptions of Hogan being nice and putting someone over.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's like, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that, because I did hear a lot about it. I just kept hearing it as the PCO match. I didn't know if it was for the championship or whatever. I just kept seeing things about this that was crazy. So I'll go back and watch that. Jared, was there anything else from the Under Siege pay-per-view that you think that people should watch?
Yes, absolutely. The World Tag Team title match, Ace Austin and Chris Bay, known as ABC, also members of Bullet Club, took on Subculture which is Flash Morgan Webster and Mark Andrews.
Yep.
And they had a great tag match. Just they built to everything really well. The timing of everything was perfect. They hit their big spots at the end. Crowd was into it. I mean, the crowd really, I don't know if they sold that many tickets for this show, but the crowd that was there was really into everything they did. And honestly, I haven't seen Austin and Bay have a bad match in this title run. They did the Ultimate X match last pay-per-view at Rebellion against the Motor City Machine Guns, and they're just going out there and having good matches every single night, and you couldn't ask for more for your World Tag Team Champions. And Subculture coming over from the UK is fantastic because they've kind of been, doing nothing since NXT UK went down. And so, it was just a really cool mix of styles, and I really enjoyed it.
Nice. All right. Well, I'll go back and watch some of the pay-per-view. Hopefully, I have some time, and maybe there's a certain place I could watch stuff like that. I don't know. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
It's called Impact Plus. Subscribe.
Exactly. Impact Plus. That's the best place. That's the best place to get it. Well, let's quickly run down. Who watched Battleground here?
I did.
Not me. I'm out on this one.
Okay.
I have not watched this
Johnny
NXT
will maybe do a
like a
quick
year.
retelling of NXT Battleground. I did. This pay-per-view is kind of, or not pay-per-view, I guess. It's one of their events. It's kind of getting like a lot of like winning the weekend reviews from what I've seen. Like a lot of people are saying like, oh, this was better than the rest of the stuff that was on, and I feel pretty much the same way that Johnny over here feels. I did not feel like it outperformed either WWE or the AEW pay-per-view. It was, however, a good show for NXT. Like NXT's putting out pretty good stuff right now, in my opinion. I, however, thought my opinion of it is that the Dragunov Dijak match was better than either of the two other matches that everyone's talking about. Everyone's, talking about the women's championship and the men's championship match being amazing. From what I saw, and there was like a little bit of camp in this match, but like Dijak always goes that way. He's very animated Saturday morning cartoon bad guy, but I thought that Dragunov was awesome in it, and I thought that the match altogether was really great. It was my favorite part of that show. So I have yet to hear anybody mention it as a shining part of that show yet. So I wanted to make sure I got that out there. Johnny, what do you think was the better of the two matches, the women's match or the men's championship match?
Well, I mean, of the two, I guess I'd have to say the men's. It's not a knock on the women, but I wasn't invested because neither of them are focal points of the NXT women's division. It's sort of awkward. It'd be like AEW putting the women's title on, somebody who only worked on Dark. That's sort of what it felt like, because they're not, even watching the pay-per-view, like even watching the premium live event, pay-per-view, whatever you want to call it, they spent more time building up people who weren't even on the card in the women's division than they did the two people in the title match. I mean, there were hype videos for Nikita Lyons. There was hype videos for Roxanne Perez. But there was no hype for either of the two people in the actual title match. And it's unfortunate, because, we're in this situation because of, injuries and things like that. And Indy being called up, when she did, why they put the title on her to begin with, I don't understand. If you're just going to have a tournament a week later, I still, like, you wanted that moment, great, but that does nothing for the integrity of the belt and only hurts it. So I was not, invested in that match at all. I can't even point to any spots in the match. Like, fundamentally, it was fine. It wasn't, I didn't watch it. I wasn't embarrassed watching it, which it sometimes can happen. But I just had no story investment in it. It was a tournament final with no overarching story. Like, usually tournament finals, you get some sort of story element to it, whether that's one person chasing the crown, building them up prior to the tournament, through the tournament, or, you know, the underdog story, or, you know, something of that effect, or somebody finally getting it and finally winning it. You know, there's so many different stories you can tell in a tournament, and this didn't have any of them. It just felt random, and I wasn't invested. Now, the world title match was good. I enjoyed it. I like both of the competitors in it. You know, Carmelo capitalized on the hometown advantage. You know, the crowd was behind him. Braun is finally, for me anyway, coming out of his shell now that he's actually got some bite behind the bark. You know, finally getting to be a heel and showcase some of that, you know, that intensity, that charisma that, you know, we've long wondered, does he even possess these things? Well, yes, he does. He's not just an athlete in pro wrestling. He's showing himself to actually be a wrestler, which is a phenomenal thing. You know, and the story they told, you know, building up to the moment and having, you know, all of those hometown things tossed into it, and Braun wanting to, you know, ruin the party. You know, it was a good match. It wasn't a great match, but it was a good match. You know, it was a great match for what NXT has become, but it's still a shallow pit compared to what NXT used to be. You know, when you compare it to NXT main events from a year ago, 2 years ago, it doesn't hold a candle, and it's not their fault. It's just, you know, it's the presentation. They're still wiping off the stink of NXT 2.0, and unfortunately, these are two guys who are heavily associated with that stink.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, NXT 2.0 was never going to be able to follow up all these stars that got called up to the main roster. And I mean, some of them ended up getting majorly shit on when they got there, but like they were legendary when they were there. So, yeah, I do. I totally agree that Breaker as a heel is like way better. Like, I mean, you hear in his voice that he's a Steiner. So like you don't. I mean, not that the Steiners were never faces, but they were much better heels, or at least Scott Steiner was a way better heel, in my opinion, at least. And yeah, I mean, I just assume that he's going to be an asshole because he is a Steiner. So he's probably kind of an asshole in real life. I don't know if he's like a full on asshole, but he's probably kind of an asshole. Yeah, I pretty much agree with all your opinions, so I won't really add anything to either of those matches. I mean, I thought that Lyra Valkyria I think that she's a decent wrestler, but she needs more character work. And I think that Stratton is not a great wrestler, but has better character work. So whatever. But it did feel like it was almost like a WWE Divas match pre Women's Revolution, like just before, when the women were getting matches that were okay, but never made you really care about them that much. You know, like early 2000s type of stuff. Anyways, so that's quickly just a little on Battleground and Under Siege, because they did happen and people were excited about them and they did have high points. So I wanted to really touch on them a little bit, but let's all do one match from each pay-per-view. So we'll go in a thing, and we did not put these ahead of time, so we're just gonna have to know about the matches, whether we like it or not. I will go first because I'm putting you guys on the spot, and I'm just going to say that from AEW, I know you guys are going to pick, matches, some other matches. We did talk about some already, so you can talk about your favorite ones. I specifically want to talk about Wardlow versus Christian Cage, which is really
you want to torture me, don't
almost
you?
Like
my mind went there too when you were talking about matches.
Earlier, like Jared said earlier, not what I was really thinking going into the match, that I would enjoy it at all, and whatever. I was like, this probably can't be good, but at least there'll be some cool stuff in it, maybe. But I actually thought the match was way better than it's definitely a champion of I wasn't expecting anything. So don't go and say that I think this is a 5-star match, but I thought it was a really good kind of jumpstart for hopefully Wardlow to find something. I feel like I said to Jared when we were watching it, that ladder dive, which was better than Jeff Hardy's ladder dive. I think his ladder was slightly bigger, but like they can do what WWE did with Jeff Hardy's giant ladder dive and just show that forever on highlights forever. Now it can be on the opening thing. It can be in all the best of crazy things that happened in AEW. It's something that Wardlow can have in his archives in his library. So that was really good, and match was like really exciting. It was like there was a lot of being like, holy crap, can Christian still take this punishment? Like, should we be doing this stuff? And other than the fact that Wardlow, a very large man, tried to jump on a ladder and twisted the shit out of it, and it made it look like he twisted his leg, which was bad. It made it look like he like broke his shin or something, but in reality, I think the ladder just kind of broke and twisted. So, but, it's not his fault that he's like 270 pounds or something. So, whatever.
And Arn saved the day.
Yeah, and then 3 refs had to hold the ladder, which is always funny, but it happens way more often. Maybe some camera work would have helped on that. Don't know. Maybe they just did not have the good angle. But, I did see a lot of people saying like, "Oh, the refs were holding ladder," and you're like, "That happens all the time."
They held the ladder on the Swanton too, but nobody's talking about that.
Like they literally made a spot out of this at the last Impact pay-per-view at Rebellion. Bully Ray demanded the referees hold a ladder for him to do a splash, and then they refused to.
That's amazing.
Didn't he do it with like a step ladder though?
No, it was a legit ladder.
Was I thought I saw somebody do it with a step ladder type thing. But that might have just been somebody purely going for the joke.
But even farther, that's something you might see in like DDT or something. So
yes, watch DDT, people.
if you like comedy wrestling, that's what I want to point out from AEW. I know you guys are going to go for the higher tier matches probably, but I just wanted to get that in. So Johnny, pick a match from AEW that you enjoyed and do a little rant about it.
Well, it's definitely not the one you just picked, I'll tell you that. But
no, I knew I wasn't stealing, so I felt good about it. I feel good inside.
For me, are we doing ups and downs or just ups?
Just ups. I think.
Just okay.
Positive. We're not negative on this show. It's not.
All right, then I want to pick one out of left field, and that is the International Casino Battle Royale that opened the show, because I went into this, and it looked like it was going to be relegated to the pre-show there for a bit. Once they started on the buy-in doing the introductions with about 15 minutes left, and they managed to milk everyone's introduction for 15 minutes. I loved that. I thought it was a great way to waste time on a buy-in while still hyping up the card that was ahead. So I enjoyed that. And then
it's funny because that 6-man before it was a real waste of time too.
Well, that's a whole different kind of wasted time. But that's another conversation. We're not talking downs, remember? Ups, not downs. Ups, not downs.
Right. Yeah.
We'll do downs another week when, we can hark on it and sort of be buried in other stuff. But it just... I mean, the beginning of the match was awkward. Because you had guys battling to get into the ring. Which sort of took me back to, oh god, this is going to turn into a reverse battle royal, isn't it? And that certainly elicited bad memories. Mm-hmm. So, once it sort of became more about they'd paired off in awkward ways and they were just battling into the ring, not to, just battling around the ring and then getting in the ring, as opposed to, fighting to get into the ring situation.
Most people got in fairly quick.
Exactly. It's not like they spent a long time out on the floor. I mean, there were definitely some spots that I thought, were kind of forced. Like, I love seeing the rope running and the dives and all this, and they're great. I love them, but this is still a battle royal, and I don't think those really have a place there. Like, just because you can doesn't necessarily mean you should. And that's the one.
Are you saying? Wait. Wait, are you saying that Commander's strategy was not very good?
I am definitely saying it was not very good. Now, if somebody had, like, if one of the heels had, like, run up to him and shoved him off while he was doing the thing and eliminated him, I would have loved that.
He'd have ended up in the third row.
Well, I mean, they could have done it into the, into the aisleway, and he'd been caught by everyone that was going to catch the dive anyway. So it's not like they couldn't have done that spot. But, once you get past those things, I liked the storytelling within the match. Storytelling in a battle royal is very hard. It's not something you can do very easily. Like, even within Royal Rumble matches, you still only get 2 or 3 stories interwoven throughout the match. There's usually the Iron Man, maybe a few issues throughout the match where somebody eliminates somebody else and that creates storylines, or somebody runs in and interferes. Those sort of storylines are sort of external to the match, but internal storylines in a battle royal are typically, your Iron Man, your shock fast eliminations, and then who wins the thing in the end. But this one had a lot more storytelling interwoven through it, which I enjoyed. Like, I was not expecting the spot where, was it Trent took the boot to save Orange and keep him in the match? When they were both on the apron?
Yeah, because Orange Cassidy pulled the rope for Chuck.
And he pushed him, he pushed Orange out of the way, took the boot, and got eliminated. Little things like that are things that I thought were phenomenal. And then you get to the final 2. And for my money, that was the best final 2 in a Battle Royal Rumble that I've ever seen. Period. Full stop. There's no other one that I can point to and be like, well, it was close, it was this, it was that. Like, sure, there were moments that were fundamentally better. Like, obviously, Michael skinning the cat the first time, fundamentally more memorable because it was the first, nobody'd seen it, which is funny because it had actually happened in the very first Royal Rumble when Ricky Steamboat did it, but I digress. Nobody remembered that. But, it's the moments that, like, made it better. And then they incorporated everything into it. Everything from Swerve literally taking Orange's hands, putting them in his pockets to try and eliminate him because he couldn't eliminate him any other way. So you take away the hands, he can't catch the ropes, and he still manages to not get eliminated. And building all the way up to the ending where they're both out on the apron and fighting and brawling, and just phenomenal awesomeness that I sat there and I said, just give me these two for 20 minutes in a regular match. I'm here for it. And obviously it looks like that's where we're going. So I'm for that all day long. But, that ending was just so fundamentally Orange Cassidy with just shoving him off like that. And then, seeing Swerve like go through that horror movie moment where you can like, and he's reaching for the ropes. Just everything about it I loved. And they did something I didn't expect. They made Big Bill a threat. They made him relevant to storytelling in a way that he hasn't been in a very long time. He came in hot as sort of the the heater the first time when he was part of, was it Jericho's, was it versus Jericho the first time? When was it MJF that brought him in as a mystery opponent for Jericho?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
When they sort of did the reverse Trials of Jericho.
Yeah. And then they kind of left him alone for a little while, and he kind of disappeared.
Well, that was when he went to Impact, right? So he went and did the Impact thing after that, and then...
No, he did Impact before that.
Oh, yes, that's right.
No, it was both. He was still with Impact when he did the first match. Yeah, he was still with Impact when he did the first match.
And then came back.
And he went back to Impact, finished up his run there, and then he came back as part of the firm with Stokely Hathaway.
Was like one of those one-offs that AEW does so often.
Yeah.
And then he came back and actually is part of the company now.
Yeah. And then, he just sort of stuck him in the firm as the muscle there, and it worked. But, him and Lee Moriarty have come out as just a great tag team that I didn't expect. It's working. It's what Enzo and Cass would have been if Cass could actually wrestle. Which I think is the great thing, because, I mean, you've got the talking with Stokely, and you've got the wrestling ability with, with Lee, that now you had Big Bill being Big Bill, and he was always good. So it's, they made him into something in that match, and that Battle Royal match was fun. It was for me, maybe a top 3 match on the whole card. maybe even 2, and that's saying something for me, because never would have bet on that going in.
I'm kind of surprised by that. I actually, when you said earlier about the Royal Rumble endings, I actually thought that, Battle Royal endings. I actually thought the Brody choking out Darby one was fantastic too. So actually, obviously they have a lot of Battle Royals under their belt because they do have one that happens every year, and then also do it quite often.
They got 2 or 3 that happen every year.
But they've shown that they're pretty good at doing them. They've been pretty decent altogether. Jer, what did you think from AEW? What do you like to talk about? I know we also already kind of talked a little bit about some matches, but you can go over whatever you like.
All right, I'm going to go over the main event. I really liked it as a whole. I thought it started kind of slow. The camera work was atrocious. There was too much going on for a single camera shot. They really needed to utilize, even split screen. Like if see, here's the thing. You need to alert the director that spots are happening in your match. So that way they know, oh, hey, Matt Jackson's over on the stage. We got to get that on the screen. Something's happening. Like they would do, you'd know a spot is coming in the crowd and they would cut away from it before the spot. And it's like, okay. But then once it kind of died down a little bit and they went and kicked the band in the face and whatever, and then the timing worked out a lot better because then guys were selling and there was a lot less big spots happening at the same time. A lot of it was concentrated on the ring or, Claudio doing the swing over, up in the concourse there. And yeah, that was a great spot. And then once Matt came back with the exploding boot and everything, then everything was focused on the ring. And then everything in the match kind of flowed a lot better visually. But overall, I think the match was really good. I don't know if it was as good as last year's, but that's neither here nor there. I really liked the turn at the end because you had forgotten Takeshita existed once Hangman came back. And they did that on purpose, which was brilliant because Takeshita made the save because Callis wanted him to, and then he kind of fell off the radar. So you forgot about him. And I noticed during the pay-per-view, I'm like, did we not point out the cameraman wearing the mask?
Yes, okay. I noticed it earlier.
Like 3 matches before. I was like, there's a cameraman in the corner wearing a mask.
It was during the unsanctioned match. Yeah.
Ever since COVID, you can get away with that. Why is that guy wearing a mask? I don't know.
Yeah, he just is. Anything of it. Yeah, right. So
people wear them.
And I noticed watching the recap because I was like, his knee looked really weird when he hit Kenny, but because when he pushed Callis out of the way, Callis fell in front of him rather than away from him, so he had to jump over Callis and then do the knee. So I thought that was a little awkward, but I mean, the crowd went nuts for the unmasking. So, I mean, that's what you want, right? And I think Wheeler Yuta getting the pinfall is going to help elevate him because Claudio made a point of putting him on the shoulders. Like the last thing you see is Wheeler Yuta on Claudio's shoulders with the BCC beside them. So I'm hoping that this is kind of a way to elevate him beyond, being the pure champion and all that stuff. And really kind of, rather than being the fall guy for BCC, which he has been, which is fine. Now is the time where you can really kind of elevate him because obviously he's got to be a focal point going forward, and yeah. I'm totally cool with that, because I think he's been fantastic in this role all year, and now he could actually be a top player, and so
Yeah.
I think it achieved what it wanted to achieve. It was a crazy match that, had some spots that were really like, holy shit. And then you got the payoff with the angle at the end, and, everyone played their role.
Yeah. It was good. They all did a good job. We are recording late here, guys. If you can see that, I have already yawned and Sharon has already yawned. Yeah, it did its job, and it's funny when it starts. A lot of people have been saying like, oh, but the camera angles are crazy, and why were they playing the music again? It was obviously they did it last year. They played the music. Obviously not with a band, but for quite a while they looped the song. And the spot kicking out the singer was hilarious. I thought that was great, and I just feel like it's kind of like a crazy wrestling mixtape when you watch the start of the Anarchy match. You are missing things, and I wish you could get all that stuff. But I also am cool with the way it's being kind of amateur type of shot, and yeah, you're missing things and whatever. It really brings me back to some really weirdly cut ECW matches that happened on TV where you're like, wait, why is the guy in the ring now? Wait, why did they go to this? Why they missed that part that were it's just like a really crazy wrestling mixtape, but it did get more focused. But I'm glad you brought up Wheeler Yuta because I'm a big skeptic of Wheeler Yuta. I don't think he's really that great at all. However, I thought he needed the pin. Lots of people didn't think he needed the pin. There was a little bit of a conversation on our Dark Match Drive Discord about this as well right after. I thought that it was good, but I was happy that he got the pin. And it showed on the next AEW Dynamite that he was really over in that trios match, and they put him. He was the focal point of the whole BCC offense. He got the pin in the end. They actually kind of made him look like he is maturing into a badass that you need to be in Blackpool Combat Club. So I thought that was great. Bonnie, what did you think about the Wheeler Yuta pin? I thought you were opposed to this. I don't remember.
I was the one who said it in the drive, and it wasn't so much that I was opposed to it, just more the fashion in which it happened. Because to me, as a viewer, it just sort of shined a spotlight on the fact that Wheeler Yuta's not winning matches clean anymore. He's not, and that's detrimental. I think it's functionally changing his character in a way he hasn't been ready for. And this is just purely from the pay-per-view standpoint. Looking back on it now, having seen Dynamite, I think they're doing a fantastic job of continuing that forward and paying it off and keeping the momentum going. That was part of my big concern, was where do you go next? Does he just, are you just going to go back to making him the fall guy for the BCC? And they're not. They're sort of pushing him front and center, which is making the hindsight a lot better. Like, oh, okay, well, this actually makes sense now. We're going somewhere with this. There's going to be a payoff here. So I'm, today I'm not as, Thursday Johnny isn't as mad at it as Sunday Johnny was. Because Sunday Johnny was just mad at, because it shined that spotlight on the fact that he can't win on his own anymore. And that's the polar opposite to his character. Joining the BCC was built on, I can do it myself. I can be this guy. Teach me, mold me, make me better as an individual. And it hasn't done that, to this point. He's been sort of absorbed into the group and has never been a guy they're focusing on. Brian got his title run. Claudio is the main event on Ring of Honor every week. He's the world champion there. And Jon Moxley is, of course, Jon Moxley. He's probably one of the top 5 acts in professional wrestling today, period. So, how do you fit in? How do you break out of that? And he has done a good job of that since then. But, there was so much more wrong with that match than I wanted. Going in, I wanted them to just beat the crap out of each other and have a great, chaotic match. And they delivered on that promise. My problems are more with sort of the fundamental things. Like, that band was god-awful. They were not good. And having them perform for the first half of the match was just distracting. There were moments where I was missing, like, oh, God, this music is just... and you're not seeing things on the screen. things
They're
aren't
better than the
registering
Eagles.
because the band is. I disagree. The Eagles have been a top-selling band for 50 years. Nobody's gonna know these guys in 2, but.
I hate the fucking Eagles, man.
But it's just it was fun to me looking back on this. Apparently, those are the guys that recorded Mox's first theme when he joined AEW. So this is sort of like a, hey, thanks for doing something for us then. Here's a thumbs up thank you for us replacing you 2 years ago. So it didn't work. It was bad. It was just
it didn't really
bad. And Jer pointed out
didn't bother me. I don't know why it bothered everybody so much. It's like
because they were bad
and they played it over and over again. But
it's because they were bad. Like if it was a good band performing it, it wouldn't be so distracting. Like last year when they just played the track, I didn't have an issue with it because it's studio recorded music from a good enough band that it's okay. I don't have a problem with music playing during matches, partly because I grew up ECW era, so I got used to it with New Jack. When New Jack comes out, the music plays the entire match, which for an ECW lover like Tony Khan, why he hasn't licensed that song to play through Anarchy in the Arena, I'll never know, because I think that's just genius. It would pop the crowd and it fits with the chaos of the match. But beyond just the music, it was the camera cuts, and not so much in a way that they were cutting, because if you're doing a single camera cutting, I like the idea that you're going to miss things because of the chaos. And that fits within the concept of the match. It's when multiple times throughout the course of the match, they start doing the twin cam. They'll pull up 2 screens at once simultaneously, and you'll see the action over here and the action over there on screen at the same time. If you're going to do that, do it. Don't stop doing it. Like if you see if something happens that you want to focus on in full screen, then do a replay of it. But you can still keep those 2 screens at the same time in your top corners as replay screens while you replay the big thing. Like the technology exists for them. So it's not like I look back at people like, well, WCW did it. World War III, everybody hated it. And the counterexample to that is true. World War III is not looked upon fondly, but is that because of the camera work or because World War III as a match concept was just ass? And the matches themselves were just ass.
Don't make me grab out my fishing pole, Johnny.
You have the counterpoint of Uncensored 95 with the Nasty Boys and Harlem Heat concession stand brawl, where you had 2 cameras. Like, if you're going to do it, do it. If you're not going to do it, don't do it. That's it. I'm done.
Okay. Every once in a while, you'll see me, like, these guys are uncontrollable. They're both, sometimes we talk about what happened last week on Dynamite, and in no time we're talking about something that happened 30 years ago. And I mean, it's great. It's probably going to be the greatest part of this podcast for people that like this, but also, we need to make sure this is not 4 hours.
You know who invented split screen for pro wrestling?
Can we mute him? Is there a thing? Is that only he can do it?
Southeastern Championship Wrestling in 1975. They also invented instant replay for pro wrestling.
Fantastic. All right, let's change gears here, and we're going to get to some WWE here. This time I will steal the match from you guys because you've had time to think about it. I'm going to go with the AJ Styles Seth Rollins match that oddly opened up the show. Wait, am I wrong, or did that open up? That opened, right?
It was the opener, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that, right. Okay, good. It was funny because I know that we were talking about this last week when we were previewing these 2 shows and kind of putting them head to head. You guys were talking about how great AJ Styles versus Rollins was going to be because they have great matches together and they're great competitors. But I can honestly say I couldn't think of an AJ Rollins match that I actually remember ever. I don't know if they've ever been
there was together. I want to say a Money in the Bank title match during AJ's title run, maybe, or it could have been Seth's. It's been a couple of years.
They've mostly been brand locked.
But I never thought that they had a great match together that I could remember. So I was like, I mean, Maybe. I don't know. But they ended up putting on a ridiculous, great match. I thought it was fantastic. They kind of did their thing. Like, I don't think they did anything out of the normal. I do think one thing to point out is that they performed this match like a fantastic match in Saudi Arabia, where like a lot of matches go wrong because of the heat and obviously, going to another country with a big time change and all that stuff. All that usually amounts to matches not being like, if this match is going to be an 8 and it takes place in Saudi, it might be a 7 or a 6. Whereas I think they probably did the match they would have done, at home on American soil. And it looked great. Rollins' gear was amazing, or his coat was amazing when he came out. But yeah, I thought they put on a fantastic match. They really sold it on either one of them could have won the match, even though I think the most likely outcome happened. And I don't know, I liked it. I thought they did a really great match. I thought they had like a false finish type of setup earlier on in the match, like early to mid match, that made you think they were going to end it quickly and not have a long classic. And then they went back to some storytelling and then came back and did regular type false finishes that WWE always does. You can't really get away from getting the finisher in WWE is like that's what you're building towards is your one finisher. Whereas I feel like other companies, sometimes wrestlers can win other ways. But anyways, I thought the match was fantastic. I don't know if you guys want to add anything to that quickly before you get to your own. We don't want to spend too much time before we get to the goofiness that is the this or that later. But anyone want to add anything specific to this, or has enjoyed the match?
I mean, there isn't really anything specific to add. It was two guys, two phenomenal. I'm doing it again. Two amazing wrestlers having a great match. Just really all there is to it.
I mean, yeah, like you have expectations for an AJ Styles Seth Rollins match that it's going to be a great match because they're both really great workers. And all you have to do is put them in a ring and just give them 20 minutes and they will perform. And I was kind of surprised in the match that Seth hit his finish and that was it. There was no, Seth wasn't kicking out of everything that AJ did, and AJ wasn't kicking out of everything that Seth did. And I mean, that's kind of the WWE big match style. Guys hit their finishers and hit the other guy's finishers, which we did some of that. But they have a formula for WWE's, top matches. And they kind of shied away from it. It was kind of almost a one and done. And I really liked it that way because when Seth hit the stomp, I was like, okay, we're only 19 minutes in or whatever. AJ's going to kick out. And nope, that was it. One and done. And Seth looks great coming out of it. I mean, he's the top guy on the brand, has been for the past year now. And I'm excited to see where he goes as being recognized as the top guy. You always hear, oh, Roman's the top guy on SmackDown, and because they treat him as such, and he's got the belt to prove it. And Raw's kind of been, dog fucking with the US title for the past year. So now, you get Seth, who has proven that he's the guy, he's the champ, he's got the belt, he's the guy on the brand, and I'm excited to see him kind of get the reign that he didn't really get coming off the Brock feud a couple years ago. The fans kind of soured on him, and hopefully the visionary character is enough that he can kind of carry it.
Well, he's definitely over. He's definitely really over right now. If you go to, I've been to a couple live events lately, and the kids are all about Seth Rollins right now. They everybody wants to sing a song, and that might be a little bit of the song being more over than the wrestler. I think the wrestler's
Bobby
also
Roode.
very over as well. Sometimes, I mean, I don't want to get too far into this because it's a wormhole thing, but sometimes like the catchphrase or the song or the whatever is more over than the wrestler. But I think in this case, they're both over. Like,
yeah, Seth backs it up.
Yeah. So fantastic, Johnny. What match in WWE? Whatever the hell this was called. What was this called again?
Night of Champions.
Night of Champions. See, I kept calling it Day of Champions. I remember that because
might as well be.
That works because it's on at 1:00 in the afternoon in North America. For me, I guess I have to take a different tack because 1:00 in the afternoon pay-per-view does not bode well for someone who sleeps most of the day. So, I watched the opening match and then napped through most of the rest because I could care less about the rest of the card, if I'm being perfectly honest. Now, looking back, there's some matches that, I need to catch up and watch and see that. But there were 2 matches going in that I wanted to see, and there were 2 matches coming out that I actually saw. So I watched the opener and I watched the closer because those are the only 2 matches that I cared about going into this. So it's the main event for me, and it's a double-edged sword because it has obviously its positives, and to me it had some negatives. Positives, I did not think that I would hear any sort of response that would come anywhere close to that Montreal response at No Way Out, and Sammy actually got pretty close to that. And that was not something I was expecting. And not just from a how over is Sammy perspective, but from a political perspective as well, which is something that is never dealt with, but there was that edge to this here as well. But I loved it. He got the welcoming of his people, for lack of a better phrase, and it worked. It was amazing. Seeing him come out and then hearing him speak in the native language and get over that way, and just everything about it was amazing for Sammy because you could actually see the genuine, reaction and response to how much it meant to him as well. Like you saw that in Montreal when it was, the Quebec crowd giving him that response, but hearing it in a Middle Eastern crowd as well, that's something that you could clearly see the genuine joy in Sammy's face when he got that response, and that's something you can never take away. The match was the match. It was about what I expected. Watching last week, that I didn't expect a lot from Solo going into this. I thought this match would sort of be his litmus test, and I think he passed it with flying colors. So I'm happy about that. I'm pleasantly surprised. I still think his long-term ceiling, I don't think he's ever going to get the world title, but I think he will be a legitimate contender in main event programs in the future, and I think that's a huge thing that I didn't expect. I expected him to be mid-card fodder, in that vein, and be around the US or IC title for the remainder of his career. But he can definitely spend some time up in the main event picture and not be, out of place in it, which I'm happy about. To me, I think the match was great. They built to it great, and actually watching it for me as the viewer, I loved it because you built to those moments, and you knew going into it that the Usos were going to get involved in the finish. There was no doubt about that in my mind. And when it actually happened, it played out in such a way that I was excited. I popped. I was huge, and to me, this is one of those things where the way this angle has been built, you look at those moments, and you go back to the Royal Rumble turn for Sammy. And this had the ability to be on that level, and it wasn't. Because it had been building for so long, and that's not the fault of the crowd, because once you get past a certain point in the crowd, you can see the response is there. And the people are excited, but the way that the building is laid out, and the way the sound disappears in that building, it didn't hit like it should have to me, because it wasn't as the explosion of fans weren't there, partly because of the layout of the stadium is such a way that you have like a huge gap from where the crowd stops to where the crowd starts again, right? So visually there's a huge dead zone right above the ring ropes, where you don't actually get to see that electric, fans rising up response, and hearing the crowd wasn't as, enthusiastic as I think it would have been in a North American venue. And that's not a knock on the fan base over there, because the fans, are, you see that when you watch the press conference the day before, you see that enthusiasm, because that's 100% fans. Whereas when you come to the,
it's WWE's job to know where they are and what to sell to these people.
No, absolutely, and they do a great job of
it. If there's not a fan reaction, Mustafa Ali, I was like, why did they put him against Gunther? Did you see the response that he got? It was ridiculous when he climbed up to the top rope. Yep. And it was like, oh, yeah, this was smart. Even though he's not really over anywhere else, this was smart.
Exactly, and it's one of those moments where, that should have been the pop of that main event segment, and it wasn't because of the Sammy entrance. The Sammy entrance was the moment. It was the one where the crowd was 110% behind. They were loud, and you felt the electricity in that moment. Whereas once you got to the turn at the end, you didn't quite have that same level of electricity, because they weren't as invested in it, because they didn't have that emotional connection. It wasn't quite as intense. It was still a huge moment. But I don't know if it was also part, it was an issue across the whole weekend, was the audio mixes felt off on both major pay-per-views on the weekend. They just felt awkward. Sunday night, it felt like the announcers were way too loud compared to the crowd. And then on Saturday, it sort of seemed like everything was just a little bit lower than it should have been. And,
Do you think that they're proving... with these responses and with the ridiculous response to Sammy, is that he really should have done the switch, and he should have known what they were going for and just had Sammy win over Reigns at WrestleMania? Because I do think that, one, Bloodline storyline, they can keep doing all these things. Well, now Jimmy's angry. Well, now they're doing this. Now now KO and Sammy are going to try to take down the tag team, and Cody's gone, and he's going to come back, and he's going to beat Roman. I feel like they're really proving that, one, it should have ended at WrestleMania, and two, really should have just pivoted to Sammy because he's a star in Saudi, which is a really big deal to him. They probably didn't. I don't know if they knew that was going to happen, but he's a star in Canada, and he's very well liked in the U.S. as well. So he might be a better choice than Cody at this point.
I don't think so, because again, you look at the pay-per-view response wasn't as big, but if you look at that clip from the press conference when Cody came out, the crowd was, they were loud, they were behind him, and it still shows how over Cody is on the global scale. Sammy, I love him to death. I've been a huge fan of his for longer than most people in, the WWE zeitgeist, because, I was a fan of a generic luchador as far back as 2005. So, I've been a huge fan of this guy for a very long time. And he's a great talent. He's a phenomenal talent. And he's reached his apex now, and I'm happy for it. But I don't know if he's the guy to carry the torch. He, to me, is sort of like a Kurt Hennig. He's the guy that should get the run with the top, because he is that good. He is that over. And putting a title on him, I think, is necessary. But he wasn't the guy to topple Roman. He was an opportunity. And it fit the storyline better because the crowd was so well behind him that, it sort of reached that point where if they're not going to pull the trigger for Sammy, when are they going to actually do it? And again, I've said it. I love the long-term storytelling of the Cody storyline, or where the potential for the long-term storyline with it. I'm a fan of it because, like I said this
goes to WrestleMania 40. I don't know.
I'm okay with that.
That's where we're going.
Because at that point, it's only a year and a half.
Because they're beating him like a drum, and that's what they do before they put the belt on you.
But it works because he's still over. You know, like I said it. I said it on Tuesday night. Yes, they're spinning their wheels with this Brock Lesnar shtick. I'm tired of the Brock Lesnar shtick. There's other things to do with Cody that I would be okay with, but I don't hate the potential for this storyline because it's building to something electric, and I can feel that starting to build. And again, I've said it again. The modern day wrestling fan doesn't have patience. You know, and that's the problem. They just don't have the patience.
They're not doctors.
Let's give Jer a little bit less time to think about his jokes and hear what he has to say about Bloodline story and
let's
what happened this weekend. What's your take on it? Because obviously Johnny's loving it, and I'm feeling like it needs to end soon. I don't know where you are on this.
Well, I think Saturday was the payoff of the Sammy Bloodline story. Because I mean, it wasn't the payoff was never going to be Sammy winning the belt from Roman, but rather Sammy causing the implosion of the bloodline.
Sammy created the crack that caused the fracture.
Exactly, right? And it came to fruition on Saturday where Roman's sitting there with his head in his hands, not knowing what to do, and Sammy's up on the ropes with the belts, and that's the visual that kind of, okay, Sammy got him. And now we transfer to, okay, what are the Usos going to do next? And my only concern with the Bloodline storyline is it's been 3 years. I don't think it's been that good for that amount of time. If they had condensed it a little bit, for sure. Absolutely. Like when Jimmy Uso kicked Roman, I was shocked because I was convinced it was never going to happen. They were in a holding pattern of, you know, Jey Uso being cucked by Roman every single week for the past 150 weeks. And that's just what it is. That's his character. That's what it's always going to be. And now that we're getting progress on it, it's like, okay, yeah, finally we're doing it. But, you know, at least now it's interesting, and Roman's going to get his comeuppance eventually. You know, the Usos are going to do something. Cody's going to win the belt. Sammy already got him. So now we're getting, finally, Roman's reign of terror for good and bad, as it has been. Now we're getting payoffs from it. And I'm invested in the story. I've been invested in the Bloodline story for probably, you know, better part of the last 8 or 9 months now. Once Sammy really kind of took the reins of, you know, being a character in the Bloodline.
Survivor Series did it for me.
Yeah, right around there. I think what sold me was the Not Very Oozy line, which I think was in October. So, you know, just since then, there's actually been noted progression in the angle. And I think that's what's captivating about it, because WWE can tell a great story when they want to, when they actually take time and let people invest in the characters and not cut people's legs off. And I mean, I'll say it, that pop for Sammy at the Rumble was an Austin pop. Legitimately.
It was a Hogan pop.
That is one of the biggest pops in company history. And it's because they built that to that moment perfectly. And since then, everything, I mean, yeah, okay, Sammy wasn't the guy to beat Roman. Okay, that's fine. And their obsession with having WrestleMania rematches, I personally am not a fan of it. I know they, you know, like to have, oh, hey, there was 3 Austin Rock matches at Mania. There was 2 of Cena Rock, like, whatever. A year is a long time.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we're going to get Cody and Roman at Mania, and that's fine. And hopefully Cody isn't beaten like a drum till then. You know, let him get a bit of his heat back. Not just walking in there with, a broken leg, a broken collarbone, and he gets wheeled to the ring. Because that's where we're heading
He's
right
in a
now.
body cast. You
Yeah,
really
right.
shouldn't do this. Yeah,
He slips off the middle rope because his plaster just doesn't land on the rope. But yeah, it's good.
I'm not. I'm going to have to wait till WrestleMania, but I'm not happy about it. But anyways, quickly, what was your favorite show of the weekend? Mine was AEW. It was fairly close. I enjoyed all of the stuff I watched, but AEW took it for me.
AEW for me.
It's a Johnny, but
Yeah, I mean there was negatives across the board for all of them, but I think AEW delivered on enough of what I expect. There was only one match that under-delivered that I expected to deliver, and there were several matches that over-delivered. So AEW for me.
You heard it here. Johnny only cares about if what he thought was going to happen happened.
I mean, honestly, though, that the WWC Super Estrellas de la Lucha Libre from May 28th was a pretty great show. You got a Carlito promo.
Hey, I'll point out, I posted my predictions in the DMD on Sunday, and I only got 2 matches wrong, and one because I hate Wardlow so much I picked Christian knowing full well Wardlow was actually going to win. So I only got 2 matches wrong that I actually thought were going to go the other way.
Fair enough, fair enough. Now,
and there's a Primo promo on this show. Holy shit!
Oh my god.
Wait, which Primo? There's like 10.
Eddie Colon.
Primo Colon? Yeah, I know. That's what I was going to say too. So now we'll get to the part. I mean, we are getting really late in the night where we do get a little bit wacky and we do get a little bit silly, and it's time to ask questions. Once again, I'm going to ask usually a yes or no question. There are a couple open-ended ones in here, so we'll see what happens. But
you really want to give us open-ended questions?
Yeah, I know. It was a bad idea. But you got to give a quick answer, and if you disagree, we'll rant about it. If you guys agree, there's no point in us ranting about it. So I'll remind you, you just say yes, no, Roman Reigns, whatever the answer is.
What are we, the Zodiac?
And then we'll argue about it.
The number of people who understood that reference is very few, but I got it.
I will award funny money Goofy, whose lines anyway points to whoever wins. Let's see if I can find a silly one to start off with here. Would you rather drink Regal's tea after Jericho was finished with it, or brush your teeth with Dreamer's toothbrush, which was used, I believe, to clean a toilet or something like that?
Probably Dreamer's toothbrush, because Jericho drinks way too much alcohol.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna drink Regal's PT.
All right. Well, you guys disagreed, so you now have to sell me on this. You really should have just agreed for the fact of not having to sell me on this. But anyways, any points to elaborate on here?
Tommy Dreamer was a great worker.
Well, I don't see how that's relevant to this, but okay. Alright, well, yes, Chris Jericho does drink a lot of alcohol. However, he has strong kidneys, as evidenced by the fact he can drink that much that frequently and hasn't keeled over yet. So I'm going to assume that, his body works as it should, and while his, his added ingredient to the tea might be flavorful, I'm going to assume that Mr. Regal drinks a high-quality English tea, which is going to sort of balance that out in such a way that it's not the worst thing I've ever tasted in my life, whereas that was a toothbrush brushing a urinal in a public bathroom. I rest my case.
All right. Just for effort. A for effort, so you get A for points. I don't know if that is going to help in the numerical world, but you got A. Who had a better career, Dean Malenko or Lance Storm?
Man.
Dean Malenko.
I made this one harder. So I tried to make this one hard. Dean Malenko, Jer, care to argue or?
I am going to go with Dean Malenko, begrudgingly, because
okay.
I really liked
We
some
don't
of
have to
Lance
argue
Storm's
with
late
it.
ECW stuff.
Lance is brought
Was
down
this-
by his WWE run. If he didn't do that, I'd probably pick Lance. But his
Was
WWE
this-
run
His
was...
WCW stuff was kind of eh.
Yeah.
I slightly would have said Lance Storm because his Canadian title run in WCW, I think, is probably higher profile than anything I remember Dean Malenko doing. Although I do remember at one point, they started to make him kind of a top. He was like top babyface, but like top on TV wrestling every day.
His feuds with Ray and Jericho in WCW were better than anything Lance did in the ring. Like he was entertaining with the Canadian title stuff and the Saskatchewan open weight belt and
Saskatchewan Hardcore International title.
Sure, and
It's hardcore.
Put it together.
And the under
It's hard to say,
75 kilogram title, or whatever
Yeah.
that translates to for the cruiserweight. They were all fun, and I enjoyed the stuff,
Kilos,
but
yeah.
the matches were bad, and Malenko never really had a bad match in his career until the very end of it.
That's fair. When he was the James Bond guy. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. What do you prefer, the Black Mass or Sweet Chin Music? Johnny?
The Black Mass.
Sure.
Sweet cheek music.
And why do you prefer the Sweet Cheek Music?
Because she just runs in and drills you with it.
That's a different
Wait, what?
move. We're not discussing that move.
Oh, wait a minute.
Sweet Chin Music.
Oh,
It's the HBK thing.
honestly, yeah, I prefer the Black Mass. Just the timing of it.
You just wanted to
and,
make that joke.
I absolutely did.
See, it's unfortunate because I had a joke lined up. If you'd have said Sweet Chin Music legitimately, I was just going to do the Eric Bischoff quote from Nitro. That's a sidekick that not even a yellow belt at the YMCA would get knocked down by. But
And then Bischoff probably sold for it in 2003, so...
yeah, but he was getting
With
paid to
that,
do that.
If you had to erase one of the teams from the TLC matches, the Hardys, Dudleys, or Edge and Christian, you have to erase one of these teams' history in wrestling. Which one would it be? No, it's a hard one. Made these too hard.
The Dudleys?
Want to erase the Dudleys? Their ECW career as well. Everything. Erasing wrestlers from history.
I really like that Heatwave 99 promo.
This is like Back to the Future. You're erasing that they were ever
Yeah.
part of wrestling.
I don't like this question.
Yeah, I think I'd get rid of the Dudleys. I think Jeff Hardy and Edge having high points.
I think...
Good one.
Oh, God. I hate that I'm deleting this from the Pro Wrestling Zeitgeist, but I picked the Hardy Boys.
Fair enough. Any specific... Well, tell me why you want the other two teams to stay around. Well, actually, no. Whatever your point is. Just give me a minute, Johnny.
Well, the answer for which one to delete, pun intended there, came down to literally one event in professional wrestling history. And while I'd love to keep the Broken Universe in pro wrestling forever, I love it. It's one of my favorite things.
You leave WrestleMania 2 alone.
Any opportunity to eliminate Victory Road 2010 from pro wrestling history is a reason I will take.
That's pretty fair. That's pretty fair. That happened pretty close to us, right?
Those
Is that
bastards.
not the one that happened where Jeff fought Sting? Is that what we're learning to?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
what we're talking about. Yeah.
Okay, fair. Okay.
I mean, I don't even think we can call that a
Johnny, why
fight
did you-
either.
Why did you choose to eliminate the Dudleys? Which is weird because
Well, that's Jer, not Johnny, for one.
say Johnny.
honestly, I think it's less about getting rid of the Dudleys and more about keeping Edge's heel run in 2006 and Jeff's babyface run in 2008. I think those were two really high points in the company. And to do away with those, I think would really negatively affect those eras of the company. So I couldn't really do away with either of them. And I think both teams benefited from. It was a starting point that they both eclipsed. So I think the three ways were important in that respect. And I mean, yeah, okay, we wouldn't get the aces and eights and, Brother Devon.
Yeah,
I'm okay.
I guess you're erasing more stuff. I was going to give you the points to you because I like your answer better, Jer, but I felt bad for Johnny. He was really struggling with this question when I posed it, and I feel bad. So I'm going to give him 100 points.
What?
He's now
Sympathy
winning with
points?
100.
Get out of here.
I also was short, so I think I should get bonus points.
Johnny should always get bonus points for a short answer. I agree. Would you rather listen to 10 hours of disaster pieces from Heidenreich, or would you rather listen to 10 hours of Vicky saying "excuse me" really loudly?
Vicky saying "excuse me."
Rather listening to Vicky?
Yeah, I could probably walk off a couple times.
Can I? Can I choose deaf?
You know what? We'll just we don't really even need the answer for this one. I just thought it would be fun. Better promo. Who was a better promo, Raven or Stone Cold Steve Austin? Which is really weird to say. They're not comparable in most other ways, but I know that you guys like Raven, or I know one of you really likes Raven. So, Raven or Stone Cold Steve Austin better at promos?
Raven.
When you phrased the question, I thought this was going to be hard, but Austin got over on the catchphrase. Raven got over on the promo.
That's
Raven
fair.
had more depth in his promos.
Doesn't really have. I mean, he does have a catchphrase, but he just uses it at the end, and it's not really important.
It's a tagline, not a catchphrase. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas Austin had a lot of great.
What?
A lot of great.
What?
Yeah, he did a lot of great things like that, but he did them over and over again. I see.
Yeah, he didn't have variety in his promos, really.
I mean, he had great promos, but they were all because of other people, not him.
Well, I mean, his promo run from like 96 to, 2000 was probably pretty great. But, I mean, just his leaning on the catchphrases near the end there just...
I mean, he always had the catchphrases, though. I mean, Austin 316... stomp a mud hole in your ass and walk it. Like he relied on they were good promos, but they all somehow tied back into the catchphrase, and the catchphrase was more over with the promo. Whereas Raven, he was able to speak from a place where, being a child and teenager in that era speaks to me in a much more realistic way.
Yeah.
All right, here's a fun one. I don't want to accept The Rock as an answer, but other than The Rock, who's the best wrestler in this? Who is the best wrestler in the Samoan dynasty? We're talking pretty much everyone except The Rock. I don't even know if you guys would answer The Rock, but.
Well, I would not, because
he's the one with by far the most accolades. So,
he's related in that everyone is related sort of fashion. I don't even know if there's actual blood there anywhere. If it's just we're all children of the island related.
Like
I'm
leaning
mostly
towards,
talking Rikishi and
like I'm leaning towards like
Umaga and
Fatu, because he wanted to make a difference. You can't say that about Jimmy Uso.
Where's the crickets? Individually, it's a tough choice. Like if we're talking like overall, I mean the Usos, far and away. But individually, I don't necessarily know if I can pick either of them individually because they're so intertwined.
Here's a question: has anyone in the Samoan dynasty had a match as good as Umaga and Cena at the Rumble?
This does include Rikishi. Yokozuna as well.
Yep.
Yoko was a great talent.
I don't know if Yoko had one great match, but his body of work is amazing.
He was super consistent considering. Like it's amazing how well his stuff. His stuff stands up really well to the test of time.
He embraced the gimmick in such a way that it was fun. Like 10-year-old me was legitimately shocked to find out this guy is not Japanese. He's of Samoan descent from Philly. Excuse me? What? No, that man is from Japan, and you can't tell me otherwise. But,
Fuji told me so. He never lies.
Yep.
I mean, I want to pick maybe the MLW stuff lately has been pretty good, though. I guess I have to pick Umaga as a single, but I think is it I can't even think of his name right now, and it's bugging the crap out of me. Is it Lance? Which one's an MLW, Jay?
Jacob Fatu.
Jacob, yes, thank you. I think Jacob's got a chance if he can get above that ML. He's weighed down by MLW, but he's done a lot of great stuff there. And I think once he gets out of that shot and more people can see him, I think I'll be able to justify that answer and show the body of work to prove it. But right now, I have to pick Umaga.
Did you give your serious answer? I forget now. Got
Yeah,
sidetracked on this one.
Yeah, Umaga.
Okay, fair enough. I don't think.
Although for the tag, I would go. I would agree with Johnny for the tag.
So I'll give it to Jer. I will give 100 points to Jer.
We agreed. We agreed. Why is he getting points for agreeing?
Umaga?
Yes.
I thought you were saying it was MLW.
No, I'm saying he could be.
They're not the same person, right?
They are not the same person.
Umaga is
Sometimes
dead.
It's hard when you. Sometimes it's hard when you go through who some of these people have been, many different people, and
usually the answer to that is Rikishi. Is all of them.
Mostly it's Rikishi, but yeah you see different Islanders and Samoan SWAT teams and stuff like that, and yeah. Let's get one more in there.
Haku could kill a man.
Ride off into the sunset. Let's see. Okay, who was a better member of their group? I don't know if I want to say worse or sorry. Who was worse for their group, or who was the worst in this group? Was it Bret Hart's in the NWO? Or was it Lex Luger and the Four Horsemen? Which was the worst idea, run, whatever?
I am going to go with Bret in the NWO. I think he.
I really hated Bret in the NWO, but I know people think that Lex was like the worst stupid decision to put in the Four Horsemen. So
he wasn't.
Well, that's
great.
Paul Roma, but
yeah, Paul Roma takes that.
He doesn't exist though. I could have said Paul Roma or Horace Hogan, but I'm trying to go with wrestlers who are actually pretty decent elsewhere. And
I mean, Roma was decent elsewhere. I mean, Power and Glory was a good tag team, and him and Arn were a good tag team. He just did not fit in the Four Horsemen. Yeah.
I think he fit in the same way that who was it who was going to be in Evolution instead of
Mark Jindrak
instead of Batista. I feel like that would have been in this question had that happened. But anyways, in the NWO or Lex in the Four Horsemen, Johnny.
Lex and the Horsemen fit in the time period, as sort of that Flair taking contenders under his wing so they couldn't contend with him. So it fit. And then you had Lex coming out of the Horsemen, and that was a great angle that should have resulted in a title change that didn't. But that's more of, bad booking decisions in Crockett. And Brett was in the NWO only because he just left the WWF. There was no rhyme or reason for it other than I was just in the WWF, so I must be in the NWO. Did not make any sense.
Yeah, and it was late too. They didn't do it right away either.
He was a babyface for 6 months or whatever.
6 months.
If he didn't join the NWO until they did 2000, then I probably wouldn't have picked him. But because he had that run in the NWO in fall of '98, just awful. Made no sense. He was just there because you needed to be in the NWO, which is stupid because the NWO was 10 months past its expiry date by that point.
Well, it's like you couldn't be a heel unless you were in the NWO at that point. And it's like,
imagine being Kevin Nash and Scott Hall and being oh my God, this Hogan guy's driving us nuts. We have to hang out with him and whatever. And then they put Bret Hart in the NWO and they're like, for fuck's sakes.
Well, by that point you had Wolfpack and NWO, so that wasn't actually true. They didn't remerge the groups until they didn't remerge the groups until
came back.
No, they didn't merge the groups back again until the Finger Poke of Doom and first Nitro of '99.
Is that after Brett?
Yep.
Okay, I'm getting my my things that I don't want to remember incorrectly remembered. So
I think Brett joined the NWO in July or August of '98, and then they did the Finger Poke in January '99. And that's when
did Brett turn heel even? Was there even an angle where he turned heel? I can't remember it.
It's pretty much just him joining the NWO. That was really it.
No, I think he went heel before that. I feel like there was a
because he was healing up with Booker T and stuff that summer. That was when
heel when he wrestled Goldberg. That he wasn't in He wasn't in NWO at that point, right?
No, he had turned babyface. That was the following December. Yeah.
That was 90. That was 99.
That was late 99.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, either way, it was all bad. We can all agree on that. Most of that stuff that we just mentioned was pretty bad.
Brett had great matches in WCW, but he had awful storylines in WCW.
Bret had good matches.
One good storyline.
I think
his entire run.
Brett's proven that even if he's not really that interested, even if he's not that happy, he is he would not disrespect his craft by not having a good match, by being like he would be I don't really want to do this, but I'm a professional wrestler and this is
that's probably the best descriptor of Brett I've heard in a very long time. Yeah.
Anyways, that's gonna do it. We can go home now because we are all yawning except for Johnny because he stays up night all the time. Actually, I'm
gonna go play some
disappointed
basketball.
in Jared. You lose just for the fact that you are yawning, and you should really you stay up late, don't you?
I do sometimes.
You're a Nighthawk, aren't you? You're yawning
sometimes. Yeah, I mean, judging by last night, I am. I was up at 2 a.m.
Well, I only ever remember
it's not being a Nighthawk if you wake up at that point.
Oh, is it true? I only ever remember giving 100 points to each of you, and I remember I gave Johnny an A, so he wins 100 in A to 100.
Oh yeah, well you keep that up. I'm just gonna pose like John Moxley.
Sure. I'm surprised you didn't gig on that too. we allowed to do that on air, or does that get?
Nope. That's not. Nope. Don't do that.
Oh.
Nope. I you know what? I don't know. But it would hit censors, and we would never be able to monetize. So let's not do that.
Okay. All right, fine. We will stay away from getting color, and that has been us for the Dark Match Drive podcast. I'll hand it off for some goodbyes, but remember that you can click this little thing down here, and I think it works. I think it works right now. And
checked it before we recorded, so it works. Yeah. It works right now. I can't say for the future, but right now, when we're recording this, it still works.
Where does it bring you?
Shouldn't this be your job, Jer?
What?
It works. This thing over here. It brings you to where?
Oh, the QR code. It brings you to the Dark Match Drive Facebook page. We are over 230 members, I believe I saw today. So that's great news. Plenty of content, actually, even while we were recording this. If you saw me pick up my phone, I was more than likely posting stuff from Impact on the Facebook page. So go check out the Facebook page. Plenty of content up there. We have the Discord, which we are recording on at the moment. Plenty of stuff there. We do live streams. We watched a whole bunch of Dynamite Kid and Terry Funk and Ted DiBiase, and it was a great time the other night. And we talk about, like, Dynamite when it's live. All sorts of friendly discussion there. And there is a Google Drive full of pro wrestling content, including scans of old magazines, podcasts, 80s wrestling, if that's your thing. Plenty of wrestling content. For $10 a month. If you're interested, hit me up. And go like the Facebook page. We got to get them members up.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a great place. It's pretty good discussion. There's not a lot of crazy trolling and whatever. We've avoided that by not having 10,000 members, where you start to get people who are only there to be assholes. So it's been a great place so far, and it's you're keeping up on all your wrestling news. You're getting some fun stuff, getting some laughs out of it. It's fun. It's a fun place to be. And
did you watch that Pagano moonsault? The Pagano moonsault? That was great.
I watched that 7 years ago, apparently.
Yes.
And didn't remember it.
I saw it in my memories, and I was like, oh, I should share that.
I watched it, and I was like, oh, this is cool. I should comment. And then I actually look at the comments of the original post, and I'm like, oh, I already did.
Oh, I've seen, yeah. So if you want to see Pagano jump off and hopefully miss a spot, it looked like he missed a spot he was supposed to hit, but then you can...
No, he was aiming for that chair in the 12th row.
Was he aiming?
Right in the ribs. He didn't need that 8th rib.
Ugh. Yeah. Ugh. That'll do it for us today. Thank you for joining us, and join us next week when we will hopefully review The Undertaker and Kane versus Kieron.
Caitlin has watched the homework match.
Oh my.
Hopefully we'll watch the homework match.
It's more prepared than we are.
He's ahead of all of us.
Yeah, whatever. All right, that'll do it for us, guys.